Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big topics shaping your world. Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to unpack the major forces that are totally redefining the global economic landscape in 2025, and this is the important part, what it all means for the year ahead. So we've broken this down into 5 key parts. We'll start with the global shockwave that kind of rewrote the rules, then look at how trade got rewired, the rise of AI, and finally, what's coming down the pike for 2026. Let's kick things off with the one event that really set this whole thing in motion. So back in 2025, one single policy decision out of the US sent this massive shockwave rippling across the entire global trading system. It all really kicked off on April 2nd, 2025. That's when the US slapped these broad duties on goods from pretty much everywhere. And you can see how things unfolded from there. A mad scramble of negotiations and aftershocks all year long. But here's the thing that surprised everyone. The global economy didn't just collapse like many predicted. Yeah, that's right. Instead of just falling apart, global trade did something incredible. It adapted, and it did it with this remarkable, almost surprising speed. So here's the key takeaway, the big idea. Trade didn't stop. It just got rerouted. You know, the initial fear was this total trade destruction, everything grinding to a halt. But what actually happened was trade diversion. Countries got really nimble, reconfiguring their supply chains, and basically creating a whole new map of economic connections, almost overnight. And if you want a perfect example of this shift, look no further than China. I mean, against all odds, they managed to post a jaw-dropping, record-breaking $1 trillion trade surplus. $1 trillion. So, the big question is, how on earth did they pull that off? Well, China basically ran a masterclass playbook. They poured money into Southeast Asia to shuffle their supply chains around. They ramped up exports to everyone but the US. And here's the crucial part. They didn't really grow their own imports. Instead, they channeled their massive domestic savings right back into government-backed manufacturing. It was a brilliant and, frankly, very effective strategy. Okay, so a big goal of the tariffs, right, was to bring manufacturing jobs back home to the US. But this chart, well, it really shows you the mountain they were trying to climb. Just look at that wage gap. It's huge. And, you know, it's not just about the wages. It's also about automation. China is using something like 55% of the entire world's industrial robots. So when you combine wages that are 4 times lower with that level of automation, well, it makes competing head-to-head an incredibly tough proposition. So, with the old rulebook basically thrown out the window, you've got nations all over the globe scrambling to find their footing and secure their economic future in this brand new world order. So, who's actually winning in all this? Who's gaining leverage? And who's getting left behind? That's the big question, right? Let's take a look at how this scramble for advantage is playing out in different parts of the world. Let's start with Africa. A lot of African nations are really seizing this moment. They're leveraging the world's desperate need for critical minerals to demand a much bigger piece of the pie. What's so interesting is they're rejecting that old false binary, the pressure to pick a side between the US, the EU, or China. Instead, they're bringing in new partners like the UAE, Japan, Brazil, and they're pushing for value add, insisting that minerals get processed right there on the continent, not just dug up and shipped out. Meanwhile, over in Europe, they're facing that classic guns versus butter dilemma. Do you spend your money on defense or on social programs? The US is pushing them hard to ramp up defense spending and become more self-reliant. But that leads to accusations of choosing weapons over welfare, especially when national debt is already so high. For now, falling commodity prices are keeping a lid on the debt risks, but it's a really tough balancing act. And that's not all. We're also seeing this other really powerful trend, the rise of the global South. It's been building for a while now. Think about it, a whole series of G20 presidencies hosted by developing nations. It started with Indonesia, then India picked up the torch, Brazil built on that progress, and in 2025, South Africa really brought it all together with a major push to tackle global wealth inequality. It's given these countries a platform they've never really had before. Okay, so while all this drama in global trade is unfolding, there's this other massive disruption happening at the exact same time. And that is, of course, the artificial intelligence revolution. It's the second great force that is just completely reshaping our world. And with AI, the central debate is, well, it's pretty intense. You've got 2 very different camps. On one side, you've got people saying it's a productivity miracle that's going to make businesses more efficient than ever. On the other side,
You've got people worried about massive job disruption, maybe on a scale we haven't seen since the first industrial revolution. The truth? It's probably going to be a messy mix of both.
Okay, so we've talked about all this high-level disruption and realignment, but what does it all actually mean for you? For regular households? For small businesses? What's the reality on the ground as we look ahead to 2026? Well, for a lot of businesses, these big global policies are anything but abstract. They feel it right in their bottom line. Take this business owner from Hershey, Pennsylvania. They're importing everything from Europe, and now they're paying a 25% tariff on everything. And like they said, sooner or later, that catches up to you. And it's not just businesses. For regular people, this is all contributing to a serious cost of living squeeze. As this pensioner put it, they can manage, but for people earning minimum wage, it's just getting harder and harder. It always hits the most vulnerable people the hardest. So when you ask the experts what's next for 2026, the outlook is, well, cautiously pessimistic. They're seeing slowdowns in the world's two biggest economic engines, the US and China. In the US, the labor market is softening. In China, retail sales have collapsed. The bottom line? It probably means more tough times ahead for households all over the world. Look, there's no doubt the global economy has shown some incredible resilience through all this. But as we head into what looks like a slower, more fragmented 2026, that leaves us with one big final question. Is that resilience going to be enough?